Hello there, fellow cake friends, and maybe we've got some cookie friends with us today too. Be sure to say hi in the comments if that's you. This week we are making a dreamy Barbie-inspired sugar cookie house. From baking to piping and assembling like a little cookie architect, I'm going to take you through everything we did to make this enchanting house. Before we get started, make sure to head down to the description box below to grab all of the tools and equipment you're going to need for this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe while you're down there as well, and get your aprons on and your creative juices flowing as we transform simple sugar cookies into a Barbie dream house that's almost too pretty to eat, but not quite. Let's get right into the tutorial. We're starting off by making a batch of sugar cookie dough, and this is just any sturdy cookie dough that you want. But honestly, do not make this house unless you are a glutton for punishment. It was really difficult, and if you do make it, be sure to tag me on social media so I can send you some sort of consolation prize for getting to the end of it. But in all seriousness, do enjoy this video and tell me, who would you make a gingerbread house for, or a sugar cookie house for? Fictional character, real life person? Tell me in the comments. I would love to hear. Justine is cutting out our templates using an X-Acto blade and a ruler. You can download these templates if you really do insist on attempting this in the description box below. We've let our cookie dough slab sit out for about 15 minutes at room temperature, just so they can soften up slightly and they're not so cracky when we go to cut them. Our templates are all ready to go, and Justine is just going to cut those out using an X-Acto blade. You can also use a large chef's knife if you find that easier for doing the long straight lines. So on each of our templates, we put the number of pieces you're actually going to need. So this is the side panel, and we're going to cut out 2 of those. You can always cut out an extra one and just eat it if you don't end up using it. So the first piece is cut out, and Justine will show you how to lift that off using an offset spatula and transfer it to a nice fresh piece of parchment paper. And that's where we'll put all our pieces of cookie dough in order to bake later. We will chill this all first though, just to make sure it's nice and firm. And you can put them pretty close together. They don't have to be like very far apart because they shouldn't spread too much. I would say like 2 centimeters apart is more than enough. So our trays are chilling in here. You can see all of our pieces. And then we've got some extra pieces that we cut out with some small cutters that we have, which we thought would be very cute and Barbie-ish. And our oven is set to 325. And be sure you are baking similar size cookies on the same tray so that they are all done around the same time. Halfway through baking time, we smooth our cookies out with a fondant smoother, then bake until light golden brown. Next step for our house is to level off all the sides. What Justine is doing is using a microplane just to make sure those sides are at a really nice sharp angle and that they are really straight too. So she just has it on a cutting board and is filing back and forth using the microplane. So the sugar cookie dough is actually quite a bit softer than gingerbread. This is a technique we use in gingerbread, but it takes a bit more elbow grease, and make sure all those corners are at a nice 90-degree angle too. Next step is to cover our pieces all with a pink panel of fondant. So I've already colored a batch of fondant here, and this is colored with Sugar Flare Pink, Dusky Pink, and Caramel Ivory. So that was just kneaded into the fondant, and now it's ready to go. So I'm just gonna take a piece. We're gonna do 1 piece at a time to start with. I've also got a cutting mat here, which is a self-healing mat, some piping gel, a sharp X-Acto blade, a brush for our piping gel, and a scribe tool just in case we get any bubbles in our fondant. And just use a little bit of cornstarch on our surface and on the top. So now I want to roll it as evenly as possible. And I'm probably going for about 1/4 inch in depth. Add a little bit more cornstarch if it's sticking at all. And there's some small bubbles here, so I'll show you how we get rid of those. Just come in with your scribe tool and just poke it like this, and then you can remove the air from one side and just smooth it out like that. Take your fondant smoother and give it a quick smooth. We're gonna flip that over and place it onto our cutting mat. Just wipe off any cookie crumbs from when we microplaned it. And I'm gonna put a very thin layer of piping gel directly onto the top of our cookie. We just want to make sure that it's tacky enough to hold onto the fondant. And especially at the edges, we want to make sure that we've got a nice amount there. Flip that over onto the fondant. Give it a firm press, but don't press it so hard that you break your cookie. I'm going to take my X-Acto blade and trace around, just trying to get the exact same shape as the cookie. So I'm letting the cookie guide where the X-Acto blade goes. Remove the excess. And we can reuse that, just knead it back. Now we want to flip this over. I think the best way to do this is to flip our mat over like this and remove it. We can make sure that the fondant is really sealed and not moving anywhere. Now you have two options for flattening this. We're gonna use our fondant smoother for sure. And also this is a good time to check that your fondant isn't going out like past where you have your cookie. So I'm just going to go around like this and make sure that it's all within the size of the cookie. And then finally, if you have any lumps or bumps, get a small piece of fondant. Just knead that into a flat disc like this that you can grab onto, and then you can smooth out your fondant with this. So repeat this with all of your panels of sugar cookie, and then we're going to be ready to decorate. Our panels have been drying overnight and now we are ready for piping. So take a look at our beautiful pink panels here. These are our roofs, which we're going to do first, and then we'll come over here so I can show you everything we've got. We have a double batch of royal icing that has been colored light pink with a bit of dusky pink and a bit of pink, both from Sugar Flare, but use any pinks that you have. I have my templates that I've made, and I will of course link those down below so that you can print them out and follow along. Got some rubber bands here, my piping bag filled up with the pink royal icing, and a PME 58R tip, a damp towel, of course all of our dried pieces, and then piping tips. I'm gonna put these on the screen as I use them because I'm not exactly sure which ones I'll use yet. So I will put the number as I go, and then I have a bunch of lids for practicing my different techniques as I go, and these are the little ruffles that we're gonna do for the roof. So I've begun here with our roof shingles. And using that 58R tip, I'm having the fat end touching the fondant, and I'm just doing little half circles overlapping each layer. And I want to make sure I'm staggering this too. So just little half circles. So you can see how it's staggered. So just make sure those are overlapping nicely so that you don't see any of the pink underneath. I'm on my final line here, so I'll just show you how to finish that up. So I'm going right over the top edge and just doing my little scallops right over the edge like this. We are ready to pipe all of our transfers. I highly recommend putting your acetate down, taping it down really well, and then getting a small amount of shortening and putting that directly onto the acetate. You don't need a lot, just enough so you can feel a thin layer over the whole thing. This will just help the transfers lift off a little bit more easily, otherwise they can get stuck to the acetate. I'll start up here. So this is the front window, and I'm just gonna do all of the lines in the middle, and then this outer part is going to be my PME 56R, and that's just going to be like a thicker area so that we have something to stick on the house itself. So I'll first outline this whole area. And then just follow the lines. For this, which is kind of like the overhanging roof area, we'll start again by outlining this. Then we'll do our little baby scallops, making sure we're touching that line every single time. Next up, we'll do this little design in the middle. So just like 2 little C scrolls and then 2 little pointy lines coming together. Finally, for this one, just a little dot on every one of those scallops. And finally, our windows. So these ones, we only need 1 of each, and then the window, I think we need 6 in total. Make a couple extra, of course, just in case. And again, we're just going to outline this area first. Inside area. I'm gonna put a little string here between these two, and that's mostly just for structural support. So come up to the center and then do the 2 sides, and then 1 line across the whole thing. Now we can switch to our 56R, or any small ruffle tip, or even like a flat tip would work too. I'm just gonna follow the line. This does not have to be pretty. This is just for structure. What we wanna make sure of is that it's actually flat on top. So there shouldn't be any areas poking out. So as soon as it's partially dried, maybe in like 2 minutes, what you can do is actually just use your finger and like press it down just a little bit to make sure that everything is flat. Again, let this dry for 2 minutes, and then you can flatten out all these pieces to make sure they're actually flush. And for our gates, what we want to do is going to pipe a border first, and I'm using a PME 2 tip. Check out my piping basics video if you haven't yet. Shows you how to make lines like this and lots of other techniques. Next, we will do vertical lines following our little guides here. Next, I just want to clean up all of the base here to make sure that if we want to put this side down, it can be flat. Let's do a line all the way down the center. So this is going to provide a bit more stability. Again, clean that up. Now we're going to do scallops. So just little half circles intersecting with each of our lines. The final design element we'll do is little dots at the intersections of our little scallops and the lines. The last thing we're going to do here is an outline on the whole outer edge of the gate. And it's totally okay if your line breaks or you need to stop for a second. Just pick up where you left off. Next up, we will do this door. So we'll start with those lines. You're gonna get very good at line work by the end of this. And if you ever make a mistake, just get a small offset spatula and you should be able to scrape it right off. When you're doing these lines, you just want to make sure that they are actually intersecting with everything. So so it's all attached and gives you a bit more stability. I've switched to my Wilton 46 tip, and I'm gonna use the plain side of this one to make a border for my door. I'm gonna clean up those sides so that my next lines go really nicely on top. And clean up your final lines here, just to make sure it's nice and squared off. I can either use your scribe or your offset for this. Next, I'm cutting out the windows for our cute little house. So I've got my cutting mat, X-Acto blade, and my templates for that. And these ones are kind of rough because we're going to be putting lots of other stuff, so it doesn't need to be perfect. For small windows, I need 5 to 6, depending on how many you want to add. And then this is the door, which has kind of window panels on it as well. And you only need one of these, unless you want to put one on the back, in which case you can make 2. We colored some fondant with black, lilac, burgundy, and we used the same pink as before. So we're giving this a quick knead, and then we want to roll it quite thin. Place that onto your cutting mat, and I'm actually going to allow this to dry for maybe 5 minutes, and then we'll be ready to cut these pieces out. So you can see this is slightly dried now. It's not pulling as it was before, or stretchy. So now I can just place my transfer on and cut out right around it. And it won't pull the fondant the same way it would if it was really fresh. I'll do 2 of these, just in case I want to put one in the back. Make sure your X-Acto blade is really sharp for this too. Now we will stick our pieces onto the actual house before we assemble it. Let's start with our door, and that'll be right at the front. So just brushing a little bit of water on the back so that sticks onto the fondant. And I'll just do my best to line that up. It doesn't have to be like super perfect because we still have to add the transfer on. So the transfer will be perfectly centered. This is kind of just the backdrop for that. Next up are windows. So I'll add 2 on the front. And since the roof does come down pretty far, I'll just make sure that those will actually be visible. Make sure these are really stuck on because we're going to put the transfers on top of these. So we don't want that falling off. So we'll place 2 windows on the side, and then I think no windows on the back. All right, so we are ready to assemble. I've got my Wilton 46 tip, which is kind of like basket on one side and plain on the other side, but kind of thin and narrow. And we're gonna start with the roof. This should actually be done the day before you wanna assemble the whole thing. So just keep that in mind. It should be completely dried because it's quite heavy. I've got a couple of heavy vanilla bean bottles in order to kind of prop it up. And honestly, I would get a second pair of hands if you have somebody to help you out with this. That is ideal. I'm just gonna put a line of royal icing on the top of this is like our overhanging roof part. And this royal icing was whipped very stiff. Lift up your roof, make sure it's going the right way. Your shingles are going downwards. And I'm going to prop that up on the side like this. And just lay that down like that. And really make sure it's stuck there. So that should stay like this. Then we can put our next line on the other side. Put it across here. So you kind of want it right on the edge. And then just pressing those together. So you just want to make sure that everything is flush. So I'm just going to push this side out a little bit. And then you can put an extra bit of royal icing on the top too, just to make sure that nothing's going to move as soon as it's all dried. This is where our vanilla bean bottles come in. We're just gonna put them here to make sure that nothing moves as it dries overnight. And then of course, you can go ahead and clean this up with a clean finger. We're gonna pipe over this as well. So not to worry if it doesn't look perfect. And that is how you assemble your roof. All of our house pieces are ready to go and our roof is completely dried. So this is the board that we're using. And we're gonna start off with just the front and one of the sides. So again, we've got our stiff royal icing ready. I'm gonna take our front piece and put a nice thick line of royal icing on the bottom. I'm gonna do a line of royal icing right here, and then we can stick that on. And I just grab whatever you have to make sure that it doesn't fall down while you're adding all the other pieces in. So we'll just align that so it's flush with the front and just let it lean back slightly so that it can start setting there. Next up, grab one of your side pieces. Again, royal icing on the bottom. Make sure you're doing the right side and place that right on the back like this. And I'm just gonna clean off that excess. Next side. And you want to give everything a really firm press together and make sure that everything is where you want it to be now, because once this dries, it is not moving. We're adding our first transfer on, and it's this long piece here. So what I'll do is just put a nice amount of royal icing on the front. And that's why we made this ledge part, so that we're able to actually stick it on with something. And then I'm just going to take it and press it from underneath. So now we're gonna pipe up here on our roof. I'm gonna start going right across the top, just with a straight line. And that's it for this tip. I'm gonna switch over to my ruffle tip, which is gonna be a 57R from PME. And I'm gonna put a ruffle along the entire edge up here and down here. So I'm just trying to cover up the kind of uglier edge there, going up and down. So go all the way to the top, lift off, and then we'll come down the other side. Now switch back to your PME2. I'm just gonna do a small detail here. So I'm gonna mark out the center with a dot, and then I'm going to do like a little scallop going down, and I'm gonna go around this one more time. Now I'm gonna do a scallop border on the entire edge of this. So just little half circles. Next, we're gonna do just a tiny little V shape up here. And then the final thing with our PME2 for now is going to be this same scallop border on the inside here. When you're ready to release all of your icing transfers, what I like to do is just place an offset spatula or a scribe tool underneath the acetate. And I just very gently bend the acetate upwards. And this just helps get it unstuck from all the little areas, and then it should lift off just like that. We're gonna start with the front window, and I've got it facing upwards right now, and I'm gonna put a nice thick layer of royal icing on our little stability piece. Line that up as best I can and stick it on. Next, let's do our door. So I flip this one over to the back, and I put the royal icing onto the back area here and place our door right over the dark piece. And do your best to make sure it looks centered. If there's any ugly bits, you can always clean that up with your scribe tool at the top. Now for our windows, same thing. And we are gonna pipe around these, so don't worry. They're not gonna be this ugly. We've got PME number 5 or any small star tip, and we're just gonna put a little detail on top of our windows. So I'm just doing almost like a little S shape, starting from the center and coming across and up. I'm gonna do a little scallop border around our front window. Time to add on our roof, so wish us luck with that. We've got our Wilton 46 tip, and I'm just going to pipe on all of the edges that the roof could potentially hit, and we're gonna put it on and hope that it goes well. Let's see. We are going to finish off our windows by just doing a small ledge at the very bottom like this. So I've got my PME 56R, and I'm just going to pipe that tiny ledge at the bottom. So it's gonna be a little bit awkward, but just try and get your bag in there and make sure it's attached all the way across. And then lift off. I switched to 57R, and we're gonna do ruffles along all of the edges where there's kind of like the free edge. Next, I wanna do a couple of drop strings just on the front edge of the roof. So I have my PME 2 again. Anchor down your icing here, lift off, and then anchor down again. And once you're all the way across, just put a little dot at each of the intersections. I'm gonna do the drop strings all the way across, and I put it on a turntable so I'm not like hunching down like a little gremlin. It's gonna be a little trickier, but we should be able to do it. I'm gonna do them a bit wider here, I think, just because we have a lot of space to cover. Sticking with PME 2, I'm gonna do those reverse scallops that we did on the front side on the back side here, just like this. And then we're gonna end up putting a bow cookie right in the middle here. Time to add our fences and the snow. So what I'm gonna do is just add a small amount of our royal icing to the base. Gonna go grab the fence, place it on, and then we can do the next section. I don't wanna do the whole board at one time, otherwise the icing is gonna start drying on us and potentially break the fences, which are already very fragile. So I will just put a little bit on this section here. And I know it's gonna come out to like around where the door is. So I'll just cover that part. Just place that on very gently and line it up with where the front of the door is. Hopefully it will stay. Next, I'll do the side. So just careful, obviously, not to disturb this one. But make sure to cover all of that silver board because it's not cute. I will put a dot of royal icing at the intersection to make sure that they're not moving around. And just repeat the same thing on the front and the other side. All of the fences are on, and now I'm just filling it all out with some royal icing snow. All right, we are nearing the end here, and now I'm dusting our snow with some mother of pearl. I will link this one if I can find it in the description box below, but any pearl type powder would work fine for this. And it just gives it a slight sheen so that it's not so matte looking. So just wait till your royal icing is at least semi-dry, dry on the top layer. A little bit on any ruffly areas or wherever you want. It's just gonna add a really delicate kind of sheen to it that's not like big sparkles. Oh, and we added our bow too. I forgot to mention that. It's just a regular satin bow, and we attached it with royal icing. Do not dust the fence. PSA. So Justine made us a little poodle, and we just used the squiggly technique on this, which I'm gonna link. We just did it in another buttercream video, so you can see exactly how to do that. And we will just put 2 big dabs of royal icing on the feet, and hopefully it won't fall over. You will place him next to the fence so he can lean on something. And our final addition for now is going to be a little bow at the back. So just piped with PME 56. Nice big dollop of royal icing on the back. Cute, cute, cute. And here is our completed Barbie house. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Barbie-inspired sugar cookie house. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you did enjoy it. Don't forget to head down to the description box below and grab all of the tools and equipment you're going to need to make this house. While you're down there, I also have other holiday tutorials linked for you, and I'll see you in the next video.